Hi guys, this video is a bit different from our usual content, but follows on from an invitation we received from Alan Melmore when we attended the Popham Microlight Trade Fair in May of 2024. And guess what? I am delighted to say that I have not only just sat in an aircraft of this type, but have actually had the opportunity to be flown and gain a first-hand impression of how it feels. In this video, we are going to be taking a detailed look at the WT9 Dynamic to see if it really is as good as it looks. This is Jeff's second attempt at an aircraft review, so bear with him.
Around 1,000 WT Dynamics have been produced since the prototype, codenamed Impulse, first flew in 1996. It has a phenomenal safety record, so much so that it was chosen by Mateusz Lenarcic to circumnavigate the world in 2016. On one leg of that trip, he flew a modified WT9 with a Rotax engine for 18 hours solid over the Atlantic, covering 4,200 miles in one go before finally landing safely. Having received type approval in the UK on the 4th of July in 2023, and with the aircraft now in its 7th iteration, LX Aviation are telling us that this is better than ever. So let's take a look. LX Aviation say there's an exhaustive options list with each aircraft being custom built to pilot specification. The configuration of your aircraft is limited only by type approval, weight, your budget and your imagination. Beginning at the business end, the Propellor is where the options list start. Pilots have a choice of fixed pitched, ground adjustable, or alternatively constant speed propellers. Aerospool have fitted the WT9 with propellers from Duke, Woodcomp, EVRA and MTV. Coming from a background of the EuroFOX and Icarus, which are essentially draggy, low and slow aircraft, I have no experience of flying with a constant speed propeller. But with an aircraft such as this, designed for speed and with a much lower drag coefficient, having a constant speed prop makes perfect sense. It also means that there's another cool looking gauge on the instrument panel to prove to your passengers that you really did graduate from Top Gun. As with almost all microlights on the market these days, if we look underneath the nose cowling, we'll find a Rotax engine. The WT9 can be fitted with everything from the 912 ULS through to the latest 916 IS Turbo. If I was to choose which to go for, I think it would be the 912 IS, which I believe offers the best compromise between power, reliability, economy and maintenance. I've also had a really good experience of the 912 IS in my EuroFOX. It's never let me down so far. Fuel capacity is around 120 litres, although again you can have the option to choose based on your needs, but this will provide a range of greater than 600 nautical miles. Depending on the engine, undercarriage and propeller combination, the speed of the aircraft will range from between 120 to 167 knots, which makes it one of the fastest aircraft in its class. Tucked behind the engine firewall is a compartment for the standard ballistic recovery system. This is a mandatory requirement in some parts of the world, and given the cross-continental credentials of the aircraft, it seems wise to have it. If not for safety reasons, then at least to keep the bureaucrats happy if you happen to stray deep into Europe. They say that the eyes seek out what the heart desires. And those who are regular viewers of the channel will know that even though Eve, my wife, is not as passionate about aviation as I am, she was immediately drawn to the seductive design of the WT9. Aerospool say that despite a passing cosmetic resemblance to the previous version, the latest model has undergone significant structural and aerodynamic improvements. The utterly breathtaking sweeping and interrupted lines of the aircraft readily betray the heritage of Aerospool. They began trading in 1990, manufacturing components for high-end glider designers, and every part of the WT9's beautiful design just screams glider. They have exploited their cutting-edge and extensive knowledge of resins, hard foams, carbon aramid and glass fibre to produce an aircraft that is light, robust, resilient and just a wonderful thing to behold. The smooth lines are not only seductive but also infer stability, predictable flight characteristics and give it phenomenal performance and economy, especially with the retractable undercarriage option. And why would you not tick that on the options list? The winglets on the WT9 are a safety feature and performance related, and not just a throwback from Aerospool's involvement in gliding, but frankly, I don't give a damn. They look just awesome. Aerospool's top-of-the-range model, the Super Dynamic, has a longer nose and larger tail to accommodate the all-new 916 IS Turbo Rotax engine that it features. The demonstrator here is featured in standard white, and whilst I understand the benefits of having a white aircraft, I was very relieved to learn that the Aerospool factory can accommodate all tastes when it comes to colour, graphics and design, albeit at a price. It's a two-person job, but the wings can also be removed if it's ever necessary to transport the vehicle by road. Apparently, in its disassembled state, it will fit into a standard shipping container, albeit at an angle, so I don't think you'll be able to utilise that as a routine storage option. The WT9 can be ordered with a fixed composite undercarriage with steerable nose wheel, or the superlative retractable gear, which is, without question, the one that you should definitely order. The WT9 has a tricycle gear configuration in common with the A10, Concorde, Eurofighter, F-35B Lightning and SR-71 Blackbird. This allows it to operate with a 24-knot crosswind component. You won't get that from a bum dragger. The mechanism for the nose wheel on the retractable version looks much more robust and substantially engineered than that compared to similar aircraft in its class. And given that the WT9 has been in production since the late 90s, they've had a quarter of a century to iron out the bugs. The retractable system is engineered from chrome molybdenum and is driven into the down position by gravity, gas struts and an hydraulic pump. In the event of an electrical failure, the hydraulic pump immediately depressurizes the cylinders, causing the undercarriage to deploy into a fail-safe down and locked position. The undercarriage must be actively retracted and does so with an electrically operated hydraulic pump feeding into two cylinders. I have a friend who has had a WT9 for years, and he reports that neither he nor anyone he knows has had an issue with the retractable undercarriage. Getting into any light sports aircraft is never much of a dignified affair, but once you've nervously negotiated your way up the grip strip on that beautiful glossy polished wing, Aerospool make ingress easy with a large gas strut operated front opening canopy. The canopy itself is constructed of a high optical clarity plexiglass and is available in clear, blue, brown tinted versions and can be left open during taxiing at speeds of up to 10 knots. The canopy mechanisms are reassuringly robust and give it a really good quality feel. Once you slide into your seat, you know this is where you belong. The support, comfort and recline position makes you feel secure and like you're piloting a little fighter plane. And that's even for someone with my 6 foot and ample 85 kilogram frame. There is plenty of head clearance, even whilst wearing a bulky headset. The control column is exactly as I believe it should be, mounted centrally and close to the hand with the arms relaxed. It's inobtrusive, even at the limits of deflection. Equally so, the throttle control and handbrake sit just underneath your right hand in the central dividing console. Rudder pedals allow for comfortable leg positioning and are adjustable as an option for those intending to syndicate the aircraft. The P2 position has a footrest, which reduces the risk of a passenger touching the pedals during flight. Although the Aerospool design geeks were somewhat interested in ergonomics for the cockpit occupants, their main focus was in producing an aircraft with a profile that minimised drag and air resistance. Whilst other manufacturers approached this issue by adopting a tandem seat configuration, I was pleased to see that Aerospool retained a much more social side-by-side arrangement. I can't believe how much space there is in this cockpit. With the width of around 115 centimetres, which is 45 inches in old money, it's 5 inches wider than the 4-seater Cessna 172. Now, I've done a bit of research and discovered that the internal dimensions of this aircraft are not far off that of a Lotus Exige, and the similarities don't end there. Luggage space in the Exige is 112 litres, which is almost identical to that of the WT9. The Dynamic has 90 litres of luggage space in the rear and an additional 20 litre storage under the seats. This translates as a maximum of 2 20-kilogram bags in the rear and 2 10-kilogram bags under the seats. In my experience, that's more than enough for a cheeky long weekend away to Europe. Now, it may just be the way that Alex Aviation chose to spec this particular demonstrator, and perhaps this is just personal preference. But whilst the WT9 feels so much more grown up compared to my EuroFOX in almost every aspect, I do feel that the instrument panel in my EuroFOX looks much more aesthetically pleasing than in this particular setup. This looks exactly like what it is, a collection of instruments and switches from different manufacturers combined together on a generic grey panel. Again, you do have a huge range of avionics and instrument options available to you, analog, digital, or a combination of the two. And, although I've not confirmed it with Aerospool, I'm hoping along with these options, you're able to have some input into the instrument position and panel design and colour. Don't get me wrong, it has everything you'd need and more, and also demonstrates Aerospool's industry-leading build quality. And in fairness to them, they've integrated everything together in such a cohesive, comprehensive and intuitive manner that it puts other manufacturers to shame. Everything just works. It truly is a special place to be. But in this instance, I'd like to have seen just a little smidge more form to dress up that function. Do we call that avjazzle? You heard it here first. Aside from that, the heating and cooling controls, apertures and vents, and everything else just work beautifully. This further contributing to the comfort of those with the urinary fortitude and desire to engage in long cross-continental flights. Alan Melmore from LX Aviation was kind enough to take me and Eve for a flight. It was a very hot and turbulent day, and sadly my action cameras couldn't quite cope with the heat for me to be able to share the flights with you. But the takeoff performance was as you would expect. We were up quickly, and I would argue in under the 170-metre ground roll or 300-metre over 15-metre obstacle figures quoted in the operating handbook. Climb rates around 1,200 feet a minute at sea level, but given my portly stature and the heat of the day, we took it a little bit easier than that. The handling characteristics are so benign that you'll never feel like you have to work hard to look good. Compared to my EuroFOX, the control feels a little heavier, for want of a better word, but the aircraft is deceptively agile. Alan, who has spent his life as an instructor, resumed the controls, and following a short demonstration, it soon became apparent that the capabilities of the aircraft far exceed those that I could ever hope to develop as a pilot. Back on the controls, I walked the WT9 through some exercises more in keeping with my operational envelope. This included taking it through some stalls. The winglets and two stall strips on the leading edge of both wings mean that the aircraft doesn't so much stall as we understand it in the conventional sense, but it seems to just kind of mumble under its breath, no matter how far you push it, without losing composure or threatening to drop a wing. You can specify all sorts of stall warnings, including alarms, control column vibrators, flashing lights, etc., but there's so much feedback from the aircraft that you know exactly where you stand and are, to a point, protected from your own stupidity by the polite handling characteristics. The footwork required to fly a bush plane, especially a bum dragger, leaves you feeling a bit like Michael Flatley on opening night. By contrast, the WT9's rudder demand won't leave you with the calf muscles of Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think this will reduce pilot fatigue on those longer flights or days when the weather demands that you just go flying for the whole day. So there is a problem with the price, and that problem is us. So just hear me out. Most of us who have been interested in microlights come from an unregulated and experimental era when we can remember people strapping lawnmower engines to hang gliders and parafoils. The sport has been founded on inexpensive ways to achieve flight, and so our point of reference is heavily skewed, and we generally wince at anyone mentioning a price tag of anything north of 30,000. But we must acknowledge the fact that we are now living in a very different world. We've gone from recklessly throwing ourselves off the Westbury White Horse and being chuffed if we managed to survive a top-to-bottom landing, to having the ability to travel across continents. We've gone from dead reckoning based on our local knowledge to GPS-driven autopilot systems that from a legal aspect just need you to be there to take off and land. We've gone from landing on our own softy, squidgy and snappable legs to full retractable undercarriages. And alongside this, we've an immeasurable number of safety devices that have been introduced into the equation: ballistic recovery systems, AOA indicators, electronic conspicuity devices, radio transponders, just to name a few. We must also consider the burden the industry suffers with research and development, and the monumental hurdles that must be negotiated with international regulators when chasing type approval and registration. Lighter, stronger and safer materials are being used, and this brings with it more complex and therefore more expensive manufacturing processes. So although you may be surprised to hear that this particular aircraft is currently up for sale at $170,000, I actually think that represents a bargain, especially when you realise that you wouldn't get much change out of that if you popped into a local Audi dealer for a performance estate car. And I know where I'd rather be putting my money. New, the range starts at around $150,000, and for a full-spec 916IS engined aircraft, you'll be looking at around $250,000. So what are my final feelings on the WT Dynamic from Aerospool? Compared to my EuroFOX, this feels...
No. We all know that husbands only have opinions that are signed off by their wives. So this is what we think. Jeff loves aviation in every form, and we have enjoyed so many incredible adventures and experiences in our EuroFOX, including our engagement. If you want to watch that video, follow the link at the top of the screen now. Although I have overcome my fear of flying and I am now very comfortable in the P2 position, I still feel an aircraft should be a means of reaching a destination quickly. Being from Germany and frequently traveling there to visit my family, I was hoping we could use our plane to fly for visits. Whilst Jeff is confident we can do this in our EuroFOX, I don't really share his enthusiasm for drafty, low and slow, flumping adventure. As much as I understand Jeff's emotional connection with the EuroFOX, I do feel that a fast composite body aircraft is what I had imagined when he announced we were buying a plane. The WT9 Dynamic has much more of a Grand Tourer feel to it. As a passenger, the seating position feels reclined and relaxed, with a footrest that supports my legs comfortably and keeps my feet away from the rudder pedals. It looks so pretty. I love its lines and curves, and I can tell that this makes it faster and helps in reducing the intensity of background cabin noise. The design takes me back to the gliders I flew in my youth, and I think that this plays a big role in the affection I feel for the WT9. Jeff is married to the EuroFOX, but I think I can easily seduce him away to an aircraft of this type. Perhaps Aerospool might help me tip him over the edge by inviting us to the factory. We would like to say a huge thank you to Alan Melmer and John Delafield from Alex Aviation for the kind invitation to review this wonderful aircraft and the time they spent flying with us and helping put this video together. If you want to get in touch with Alan or the sales team, you can do so by visiting alexaviation.co.uk, and I'll also make sure Jeff puts their contact details in the description. If you liked this video, then thank you for doing so. If you subscribed, then it's good to have you aboard, and we'll see you in the next one.
My bum is burning.